Well, we're not curing cancer, but we are making the difference in somebody's life, maybe for that one moment.
That moment is not just any moment. To Mary Jo Braun, who goes through the process for permission to use third-party music for feature films and television, it's a work of value.
Maybe they're in the hospital and they have nothing else to do but watch TV. And if we can make a difference, then we've done something good.
Hello, welcome to the podcast series Music to Our Eyes, the Business of Film Music. I'm your host, Rosie Wong. Oftentimes when people say music to my ears, they mean it makes them happy to hear something, maybe some good news. In this series, music is placed in the context of our overall human experience, where we engage both our visual and auditory senses during a movie. We often say, let's watch a movie, but in reality, we're watching and listening at the same time. Does that resonate with you? With that being said, it is my hope to shed light on the role music plays in our experience. And through this series, I hope to take you on a journey to explore what's behind the scenes in the film music world. This podcast series is organized into 3 episodes. Episode 1, which you're listening to at the moment, introduces some film music professionals I interviewed who share their stories and their insight about the industry. Episode 2 focuses on the considerations that affect their decision-making from a business perspective. And Episode 3 dives deeper into their strategic solutions for bringing a film project to life. Now, let's get into it. In the beginning of this episode, you heard from music clearance consultant Mary Jo Braun, who focuses on clearing pre-existing copyrighted songs. Although she thinks her role in music clearance is not as glamorous as those in the front line of the business, she thinks there's a mission to her work.
Music clearance is necessary because you are dealing with someone's work of art or their copyrighted work of art.
First, you would have to recognize the value of any musical piece.
Say I want to use a Taylor Swift song. Even though she has tons of money and she sells millions of records and she gets paid on millions of songs, she still has to be paid by me for using her hit song in my film because her song adds value to my wonderful movie. So what role I play is to negotiate the rights with her licensors, which happen to be her publisher and her record company. So I have to negotiate the right to use her hit song in my movie. That sometimes involves multiple publishers, maybe sometimes multiple labels if she sampled anything. So I secure those rights for the studio, any studio or any film producer. So I secure those rights to make sure that we can use that song in the film in perpetuity and also on a worldwide basis. That is basically securing a buyout for theatrical use.
And note that there are 2 sides of clearance to using a copyrighted song, the publishing side and the sound recording side.
Publishing is the composition itself. The recording, sound recording, anybody can record it. So you can do a re-record most of the time, but you can't have a sound recording without the publishing.
So now it's Braun's job to find out who the licensors are at both ends. The publishing side can take quite some work.
The first bit of my process is to get all my ducks in a row, to research the publishing ownership of the song. Then I see what percentages each of the publishers have or administer on the song. And then I go out. Typically, I will send the same email to each and every one of the publishers. So if you have 7 publishers, they pretty much get the same email request that I send everyone. Oftentimes you'll have publishers ask you for budgets, film budgets and music budgets. If I have that information, I will offer up the film budget. And typically that is revealed after the film is released. So if anybody ever has a question, all they need to do is really look at that Box Office Mojo or something like that to see what the film budget was.
After clearing the publishing side for a song, she moves on to the other side, sound recording.
So say I get a song for $20,000. I get it cleared on the publishing side. So then I go to the label side, which is the sound recording side. And I say, the publishing came in, can you match this on a most favored nations basis? Now, most favored nations basis means the label gets every single right granted to the publishing. If it's 29 seconds of the song being played, I can't say we also get this, this, and this. No, rights mirror each other. So that's most favored nations.
The fact that a production team knows whom to reach out to is because those songs have available metadata, namely the information of the song's rights holders. And most importantly, this information has to be accurate.
The song title, written by, performed by, and courtesy of. That courtesy of line is usually reserved for the sound recording or the label that licensed that song to you. We rarely give publishing information because publishing, it's bought and sold so frequently. That's one of the reasons, but there are other reasons. The more information you add, the more what we call real estate you have on your film. There's a cost associated with every line in that end credit.
After negotiating for the use of a song on both the publishing and sound recording sides, she has a new challenge: clearance.
I take care of those rights in that I ensure the correct publishing information is included in the cue sheet. So it goes beyond negotiating the fee to use that song. You also have to ensure that license secures further income by way of a cue sheet, by way of performing rights, collecting on the use when it goes to television or outside of the United States when it debuts theatrically. So clearance is much more than just negotiation.
For Braun, sometimes the biggest hurdle is the budget.
People don't understand that oftentimes you won't have the budget to have that big song. So you have to figure out how to make it happen and to please the director and the studio and the producer all at once, right? And the licensors, you want to make them happy too. So you're a people pleaser. You have to be, and you won't do it all the time. And that I think is the hardest part, is that sometimes you can't please everyone. You try though.
Trying is an attempt to make ends meet, says Braun. It's also identifying the problem and creating an opportunity to communicate.
You pick up the phone and you talk it out. Email is one thing, but sometimes those words don't express how you really feel. I can hear it in your voice. I can hear your unhappiness with, no, that song should garner 100,000. I don't disagree, but I need to talk with you. 50,000 is better than nothing. I need to somehow convince you that what I'm doing is you're going to benefit. Yes, we are going to benefit too. Or we may not.
Sometimes rewards come out of this struggle, and you may even come out stronger. Braun cites a successful fit as the greatest reward.
It's the same one. It's the same result, pleasing the producer, the director, the studio, and the licensors. That's the most rewarding. And to say, wow, that song worked so well in that scene. Better Be Good to Me worked so well in Imaginary Friends. The other songs, all of John Krasinski's choices worked so well in that film. They just all worked.
What worked was the essence of film music, an integrated entity of audio and visual components that bring people into a story.
You were listening and watching. at the same time. That to me, when those two elements, your visual and your audio, is a good marriage, that's the reward. Because there are some movies that were like, wow, what was that song? Bad placement. That's where you really rely on your music supervision or your creative music team. You really rely on them to make that a memorable experience for a moviegoer.
Similarly, music supervisors play another important role in film music, and sometimes they work alongside music clearance professionals.
We're not curing cancer, but oh my God, there's fires.
This is Janet Rich, who's been a music manager and assumed the role as a music supervisor because of her clients.
I remember I had one client who said they loved composing because they loved watching TV, and their first opportunity to compose music was they just got to sit with their guitar and watch a TV show and play along to it, and they thought that was just the coolest. And I thought I loved that. It's really just like playing along to the visuals, and composers have this magic ability to make something elevated and to really be another character in a movie or a TV show. So creatively, it was fun to be just even part of that whole thing.
In her experience, music supervision involves selecting music, negotiating for the use of music, managing budget, and putting all the pieces together. But to get all the pieces in the first place, she's responsible for connecting the dots.
So it's really about, your matchmaking. You're trying to find the perfect person that could work with the director, that connects to the project creatively.
But this collaborative and creative industry also mandates a certain amount of flexibility.
I think deadlines are the hardest because they really aren't movable, and you're dealing with people. Real life happens and someone gets a flat tire, or someone's, in the hospital, or real things happen, and it affects the schedules, and you have to just be able to deal with those fires. Sometimes you can't close a deal in time and it has to be closed before something's shooting. Things are just on 10 a lot.
To cope with letdowns, Rich uses a particular strategy.
I have a saying that's called worst call, first call. And that is, if you have bad news for someone, you cannot sit on it. You have to call them, and you have to make worst call, first call. You have to make a bad call, do it immediately. Do not wait. Do not put it off till tomorrow. If you can't get a song, or if someone says no, or if there's a pass, or the thing's out of budget, you have to tell everybody. Because also, you're not an island. You're part of a team. To be respectful to them, they need to know when you know. You can't be sitting on information.
It took her years to realize this.
When I was less experienced, I'd think, I could fix this without telling everybody. I'm going to figure out a way to fix this. But what I've learned is having everybody know and having a collaborative group to strategize with about how to fix something is so much better. You get so much more. Because I used to think of it as a failure on myself. I wasn't able to deliver this. I did something wrong. But I did get to a point where I realized this is what it is, and I need to talk to the team because we can all talk about it together and to figure out what the best way forward is.
Transparency is key, and part of being in a team in this business is you have people to bounce ideas off.
But we have to strategize about what's the best way to ask. So it's really speaking up, being part of the team, and knowing that the whole thing is not on you, and use everybody because everybody brings something to the table. And don't think you have to do this all yourself.
For Rich, feeling this support is just as important as getting the work done. After all, every step in the process leads to the next.
When I have a chart where everything's approved, all the licenses are paid out, and I've fully executed agreements on a project, and everything's in a folder and delivered, and there's a cue sheet and it's done, that is literally my joy. I have such joy when it's done properly and completed. It makes me so happy.
What's also rewarding to her is seeing her work out there and knowing that she did her clients justice.
I'm really happy and proud when I see something on air. I work for Peloton and chase a lot of songs to get on the platform. I do the bike all the time. When I'm taking a class and a song I worked really hard to get into the platform is getting played, and I know that those artists get paid very well, Peloton pays well, and tens of thousands of people are hearing the song because, I did something to make it happen. I love that. I get a lot of pride in that too.
As a music supervisor, part of her job working with people also allows her to explore content.
Music discovery is one of my absolute favorite pieces of working on movies and working with directors that value that. Not all directors value that, but it's the greatest when you could have a movie filled with songs and music that might be either secret handshake songs from older artists that people may be just discovering or newer artists. You're elevating and bringing new fans to great music. I think that's so exciting and a great thing to be able to do as a supervisor.
We'll explore more stories from music creators when we come back. Music supervisors leverage their creativity to select music and negotiate for the rights to use it. At times, they also work with composers who make original music for a film. The next guest I want to introduce you to is Elaine Muddiman, who writes music for film and television. In addition to enjoying her music, I'm drawn to her articulation of her work.
Where you're writing a piece of music and it's a bit like you're making a cake, you're putting all the ingredients in, and then suddenly it becomes something amazing that is more than the sum of its parts,
To her, that's magic, and it starts with writing.
Writing for film and television, you're often writing to picture. Not always, sometimes you're doing music that then gets put to picture, but often you're writing to picture. And obviously songwriting, you tend to be writing lyrics and the song, the music at the same time. Normally I write music, the actual music or orchestral music that doesn't have songs, doesn't have lyrics. That's the majority of the music I write for film and television doesn't have lyrics. It's just underscore and background music, or it's featured music that is not a song. It can be orchestral or whatever, but the songwriting, usually I write both the lyric and the tune and the backing and the production of the song.
Recently, Muddiman worked with Mario Lopez on a musical where she was invited to write lyrics. In the past, she worked on Happy Feet 2 and Ice Age 4 with John Powell and Frankenweenie with Danny Elfman. Muddiman says that even after being in the industry for 30 years, the most intense part of her job is the deadline. But her approach goes beyond a project scope.
You've got to get as much help as you possibly can. That's in every way possible. If you've got kids, you need nannies. You need to get cleaners. You need to get, help in every aspect of your life, not just the music help, but as much help as you possibly can so that you can, stay healthy. I have made the mistake in the past when I was younger of not having the money to get help and trying to do everything and being up till 3 a.m. and then having to get up at 6 with the kids. And it was really tough.
That sounds like you'd really need to be organized and have a strategy to manage your time. As a creator, she has quite a mysterious relationship with her work.
They often feel a bit like your children. You're sending them off into the world. But at the same time, I can listen back to music that I've written and not really remember how I did it. In a strange way, you can feel quite detached, and in another way, you can feel very nostalgic because it brings back lots of memories. And certainly my children often say when they hear some music from years ago, oh my God, I remember that you're going to sleep when that was playing, It's like a time machine. It can really take you right back to how you felt, what you were feeling at a time when that was playing.
Growing up watching people playing instruments on TV, Muddiman knew she wanted to be a musician.
Apparently when I was little, my mum said I waddled up to the television and was just like, want one, and pointed at these people playing instruments. In particular, it was a guitar, I think. I think I was interested in the drums as well, but my mum wouldn't let me play the drums, too noisy. I've since, I wouldn't say learnt to play the drums, but I love to play the drums whenever I get a chance.
She says she could never have predicted her future composing career.
It's funny, I hadn't really ever thought about how much music there is on television. I always thought music just really about pop music. So yeah, it was a great revelation to me. I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And you get the choice of doing so many different types of music. Whereas the other thing I wasn't keen on was doing the same, being in a band and playing the same kind of music. Whereas film music, you can, 1 minute you're doing an orchestral score, the next minute you're doing a jazz thing, and the next minute you're doing an operatic thing. And the variety is wonderful.
And after all these years, she stays true to her craft.
Personally, it's one of the best therapies you can have to be creative. And I think it occupies the mind and the soul, and there's no substitute for creativity, And I think the more we can encourage people to create and co-create, be collaborative with other races and other societies, I think it's a good way to bring people together.
Many talents started their craft at an early age. A major reason for them to stay in the industry is their passion.
For my 13th birthday, I got this amazing green electric guitar, like this Ibanez electric guitar, and this amp and like a distortion pedal. And I was like off to the races, and I just kept playing guitar and singing.
This is Brianna Cash. As a creative, she recalls her starting point back in the day with her guitar.
I was in pain trying to learn, but I tried.
She knew music was her destiny.
Just got the bug to just keep making music.
And now, Cash is a member of the Guild of Music Supervisors and wears multiple hats in the music industry. She's a singer-songwriter, a music producer, and a music supervisor. In her role as a music producer, she's very much involved in the music production part of the process.
It could be coming up with arrangements, the overall beginning and end result of a song, how you want it to sound, what musical elements, the instrumentation you want to use, just the overall recording process, and how it should also be mixed and mastered. In many cases, if you're producing, you would also probably work with an engineer.
As a music supervisor, Cash works as a liaison between her crew members.
I would be responsible for finding out what their vision is, what they're wanting, and sourcing music that they are requesting, whether it's something very specific written in the script, if it's even an actual song that they want, that they say they know they want. The ABC song, then I have to find a way to make that work within our budget for the project, whatever that may be.
And this starts with understanding the story and the genre of the film and extrapolating keywords for her research.
If I'm in a library, music libraries, I would type in suspenseful, scary, stressful, horror, whatever it may be, thriller. And then based on keyword searches like AI, it will find what it has within its catalog database, and it will populate hundreds or thousands of clips, pieces of music, whether it's instrumental or a song. And then I'll watch the scene, I'll read the script, I'll listen to the director's notes, and I will find what I think may work best in the scene. Also checking out, like, if it's clearable, what it will entail to do that. And that also would impact my decision on, as far as giving options, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to make it happen. You don't want to pick something that is going to be really challenging to be able to use. So that's how I would do it if going to a library. If I'm going to find a band, an artist, same thing. I would have to make sure, I would have to check the rights, who owns the rights, and see if it's clearable, and just make sure about all of that. And then it all comes down again to budget. I'll pick the best ones, maybe like 3, 5, 7 examples, and then make a playlist, send it off, and see what they think.
Similarly, as a songwriter, she needs to understand the director's vision.
Sometimes they're very specific on what they want. Sometimes they kind of look to you to be the person to give them some references or give them some options, and then they ultimately choose like their favorite.
Going back to that hypothetical, suspenseful scene, it comes down to the building blocks of music.
Instrumentation, the key, the melody, the tempo, all of those things.
As a creative, Cash says she incorporates her own style with her work. But in the context of making music for a film, there's an added layer of considerations.
I think if a director's asking me to do something, they already are aware of what I sound like and my style. So they have pre-approved it and they like it. My sound and style is what they are wanting to use with their vision. So I'm like confident in that, knowing like, okay, well, they wouldn't have asked me if they didn't want what I usually do. And then we have conversations about what style or how I can maybe tweak my style to kind of fit their scene or their overall project. For example, if they're wanting like a Nora Jones feel, Amy Winehouse or Alison Krauss, Brandy Carlisle, whatever it may be, I will cater to them. I will try to curve or make my product lean more towards whichever style or whichever flavor, so to speak, that they're wanting.
As much as she understands the value of being part of a project, she has an assessment system that guides her decision as to whether or not she takes the gig.
I would have to like the project. I would consider if it's got distribution or not. I would have to make sure that it's a paying opportunity too. If all those things fit my needs, I suppose, meet a certain threshold that's like palatable, then I would say yes or no, depending on all of those things.
Among all her musical roles in the industry, Cash says music supervision tends to be the most challenging. To her, it's many hats within that one hat.
We are just constantly working. It's like we're on call like doctors, and we're not saving lives. We're clearing music, but we're treated in such a way that we are crucial. Yet it's a struggle because, I'll be honest, we are not compensated fairly. We're like music attorneys, but we don't make even a fraction of what they make. As a music supervisor, you're clearing music, you are reaching out to people, you're making stuff work within your budget, you're doing a lot of work, and then you might have to redo everything, depending on the edits and how many times that is done.
At the same time, it is also a reward in and of itself.
I think I can speak for everyone when I say, when you're watching a TV show or a film, and you hear a really well-known song or even a new song that you've never heard before, and you hear it, you're just like, oh, what a great song, or oh, this makes so much sense. So, what a great choice. That is also very creative in its own right and makes me really happy when people say something to me like, oh, you picked a great song. And in some ways, you can't always take credit for that because sometimes you're told to pick that song and make that song work. But still, it's nice in situations where you don't, or even when they compliment you, because that was your job and you did it and you were hired to do that. So it's all rewarding. It's all positive and good vibes at the end of the day.
For Cash, songwriting reaps a similar joy.
I love creating. I love writing songs and producing and being in the studio and working with other artists and writers and producers. The most rewarding part being a songwriter is knowing that you've created something, whether individually or as a team, that you're just really happy with. If people can relate to it, whether it's 5 people or 5 million people, whichever, then I feel like my job is complete. It's not done in vain. You can write for yourself and that's one thing, but I really love it when people tell me, oh, I really love your song, this particular song, and your voice, and the production, everything, it helped me through this time. When they compliment you in some way on your art that you're putting out there, that is, I think, the most rewarding.
We have heard from music clearance consultant Mary Jo Braun, music supervisor Janet Rich, music composer and songwriter Ellen Muddiman, and singer-songwriter, producer, and music supervisor Brianna Cash, who report that their entry to the film music world started off with their passion for music. But I was curious, what catches their attention in today's landscape?
How much music? Oh my God, that there is so much opportunities for music. There is so much content being made. That to me is the wildest piece of it all.
There's a lot of shows, there's a lot more opportunities for your music to get heard as a creator, and more opportunities for a music supervisor to work and a producer. So there's more opportunities, yet you have to find them and you have to be aware of your roles and how you can be compensated fairly.
While there are more opportunities to use music, there's also more access to making it.
The price of equipment is so much cheaper now, which I think is wonderful.
However, for rising artists, they may still have a long way to go.
You've got this sort of hockey stick of the income that people can generate. There's a lot of people not earning very much money at all, and only a few global stars who are famous throughout the world. A long time ago that people were famous in different territories, you know. There were a lot less global famous people and a lot more territorial, you know, people. Someone in France could be famous, but you'd never have heard of them in Italy or vice versa, you know. I think that local scene has somewhat disappeared, which is sad. And I'm hoping to find ways to bring that back.
On the other side, in the licensing world, the change in the industry is affecting music rights holders and users.
It's interesting to see how the legal system is working with music providers. And I think we're going to see some interesting developments, honestly, on social platforms. What company's suing the other company? It's interesting, and it'll never stop. So just keep up on that, because it sets the tone of how you'll be able to use music in your art form or whatever platform you want to use somebody else's copyright, their vision.
Now, you may have started thinking, behind the glamour of the industry, there exist struggles. I think that goes with any industry in our society, just as every individual goes through hardships in their lives. But what matters the most is how you move on and come out stronger.
Whenever you come to a mental block, you know, don't bang your head against a brick wall. Just pick up another instrument or try something different. And it might not work, but just keep trying different things until something comes to you, you know.
You build your network. You have to have a network of people. You are constantly working around the creative group. You always are. And that's also what makes it so amazing, because some of those relationships turn into really meaningful friends.
Don't not do it because there's not a job. Be part of the community and the job will come. Spot the genius, who's talented in your orbit, and work with them, because all boats rise with the tide. When someone's doing well, everyone's going to come along and do well with them.
Be fair, be honest, and honest even when it hurts. Don't make promises that you can't keep. Don't do the quid pro quo. It never works. You have to say, today is the most important day. I can't tell you about tomorrow. I will do my best to help you out at some point, but I can tell you that today is the most important day.
Learn from everybody and listen. I think it's a really a good skill to have.
Determination, perseverance, and patience, because it takes a while. You can be really good, you can have a lot to offer, but it really is, when you hear that saying, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. It really does come down to that.
You have to be a hard worker. You have to not be scared of work, because it is 24/7. Things are happening on Saturday. Things are happening on Sunday. And you have to not care. You have to be okay with that. I'd say, you know, being a really hard worker and being real easy to be around.
The complexity of the business side of it, though, is why I think a lot of composers and songwriters really need to have, you know, be educated about how to make money from their music. I mean, it's a very hard thing to be enthusiastic about, being an artist. You know, it's the last thing you really care about, but it's probably one of the most important things.
There's a future in new technology, although, you know, a lot of technology you may think might be taking your job. It's not. You have to be part of that technology. Be the front runner, but you have to work. Now, you may have a friend in the industry, but when you get into the door, you need to prove yourself as a viable candidate. You have to be committed, and you have to know why you're doing it.
Being creative is not limited to creating something artistic. From my conversations with Mary Jo Braun, Janet Rich, Ellen Muddyman, and Brianna Cash, being creative is making things work even in the most stressful and unexpected situations. You just listened to an episode where we dived into their professional stories and some key insights into the film music industry. Thank you for listening. This episode was produced and edited by me, Rosie Wong. The music is by Clavier. Special thanks to the E.W. Scripps School of Journalism and Scripps College of Communication at Ohio University, and my committee members, Dr. Elizabeth Hendrickson, Professor Bill Clack, and Professor Josh Antonuccio. You may visit my website at rosiewongjournalism.weebly.com to explore the whole podcast series, Music to Our Eyes, the Business of Film Music. You may explore episode 2 and 3 in this series to find out more of the processes in these professionals' work. And remember, today is the most important day every day.